What's up, guys? I asked you on Instagram if you had any questions about Harry Potter or the Wizarding World that you'd like me to answer, and you guys sent a bunch in. So I'm really excited to answer some of those in today's video. Okay, first question. What would your Horcruxes be? That's a great question. I'm constantly torn with questions like this between trying to be really smart about it. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the memes that says just make a Horcrux a pebble and throw it on a pebble beach and no one will ever find it, right? Or make a 3310, the Nokia phone, a Horcrux because it's virtually indestructible. That's really smart, but I have a feeling it has to be quite emotionally significant to you to like tie a part of your soul to it. For me, I'm not really a hoarder. I don't have lots of collectibles or things that I'm like sentimentally attached to. I have a small box in the attic with things that matter a lot to me. I've got the boarding pass from the first time I went to LA. I went to VidCon in 2011. The boarding pass to that one is super significant to me. So I think that would be a cool Horcrux. It's significant. I genuinely think the Harry Potter books are so significant to my life, having read them growing up and them still being a staple in my life as an adult today, and they've led to like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and stuff for me. So maybe even a Harry Potter book would be in a Horcrux for me. I actually have a copy of the Philosopher's Stone that I stole from my primary school library. So maybe that. Maybe I shouldn't admit to that on camera. It's fine. Next question is, what is your favourite book apart from Harry Potter? So I read Scythe not too long ago, which is a really cool trilogy of books. It sort of falls in line with the Hunger Games, Divergent, that sort of dystopian YA theme. Basically, people can't die of old age anymore. Like, all natural causes of death have been eradicated. So there are a group of people called scythes who choose who should be what they call gleaned or killed in the name of stopping overpopulation and retaining some normalcy and some form of mortality. They only glean the minimum people necessary, but there's like political struggles in it. There's some really cool aspects to it. I'd recommend it to anyone who likes that sort of dystopian YA genre. Who is your favourite Death Eater? Bellatrix is always my favourite. She's quirky and interesting. And in the films, Helena Bonham Carter does a great job of bringing that character to life as well. Like, you really believe she is on the edge of sanity. She like craves this vindictive, cynical, morbid cruelty. So those layers to Bellatrix make her my favourite. I also really like Lucius, just aesthetically, and the way he holds himself, just kind of likeable, but I think Bellatrix is my favourite. Somebody's asked, if you were in Harry Potter, which character would you be? That's a great question. I struggle. I don't necessarily relate to any of the main characters at all. I'm not gung-ho, like need to save everyone, like Harry does, like when he rushes into the Ministry to save Sirius, like I would hold back far more than he does. I'm not as like hot-headed as Ron. I'm not as intelligent or I don't pay as much attention to detail as Hermione. I'd say I'm in Slytherin anyway, but I wouldn't be friends with Malfoy. Like, I'd be a Slytherin, but I wouldn't be cruel or horrible to people or a bully. So I'd probably just be a really boring, like, background Slytherin who keeps himself to himself, gets by with his studies, doesn't intervene with any of the main plot lines of the books. I think I'd be a really boring background Slytherin. Okay, someone has asked what my thoughts are on Gilderoy Lockhart. I think how evil Gilderoy Lockhart is downplayed in the fandom when people talk about Harry Potter. Like, they talk about Umbridge as being the worst and Voldemort as being the next worst, right? I think Lockhart is a close third. Okay, Voldemort is committing mass genocide, obviously extremely prejudiced, very racist, awful person. Umbridge, also awful, tortures children, right? Lockhart knowingly, and for no reason other than self-gain, takes people's memories. He erases their existence. It's not far off what happened to Neville's parents, that they were tortured to the point where they lost their minds and couldn't remember or recognise anything. Lockhart did that to people just so he could get famous, just so he could take credit and take the fame and make some money. To me, that is so cruel, that is so self-centered. Lockhart is awful. He is top 3 villains in the series for me. Okay, somebody's asked what my favourite part of the Harry Potter series is. So I'm going to go with something from the books here because they didn't put it in the films, unfortunately. But in The Half-Blood Prince, when we find out all about Voldemort's backstory, to me, that is one of the most interesting, like, subplots that fleshes out the character of Voldemort. Like, I love learning all about Marvolo and Merop Gorn. I love learning all about when he goes and visits Hepzibah Smith and steals her sort of magical trinkets that he then turns into Horcruxes. Until that point, we know that Voldemort is obsessed with living forever, but we don't really know too much about him. He's just bad for the sake of being bad, right? He's a very one-dimensional evil guy. Whereas his backstory being explored in The Half-Blood Prince fleshes him out. He becomes 2-3-dimensional. He becomes more of a real person who's gone down this path. And for me, that's what makes it so interesting. If they had put that in the Half-Blood Prince movie, I genuinely think it would have been my favourite film. If you could go back to any day in your life and take Felix Felicis, what day would you pick? Oh my word, that is a tough question. I don't think back on any days in my life and think, goodness me, how unlucky was I? Like that day really didn't have my luck, and so things didn't go for me. I can't, there's no standout day for me where I just needed luck to turn everything around. When I was learning to drive, I was extremely anxious about it. So maybe like a driving lesson or my driving test or something like that, it would have just like calmed my nerves, made me feel more confident in my abilities to pass my test. Besides that, like trying out for like a football team when I was in school, but I wasn't really good enough to make the team anyway, so even if I took the Felix Felicis to make the team, in my first match I wouldn't have had any Felix Felicis left, so I would have just been dreadful and probably kicked off the team anyway. So yeah, I think probably like a driving test or something like that. Okay, somebody's asked Fred or George. So I'm inclined to say that Fred is my favourite, but I think it's just because he died. Like, I'm biased towards feeling sorry for him and stuff. Like, if George had died in the Battle of Hogwarts, because they're such similar characters, it's the only real differentiating factor between the two of them, right? So if George had died, I'd probably pick him, but because it was Fred who died, I feel bad for him, I give him more sympathy, I sort of am more emotionally attached to him because I felt the loss of his life. So I guess I'd pick Fred out of the two of them. Somebody's asked who my favourite Marauder is. That's a good question again. My favourite Marauder would be Lupin, I think. James was a bully, we saw evidence of that. I'm sure it was only a snippet and it was obviously from Snape's perspective, so it might be slightly biased, but we know he wasn't particularly nice, he was a bit cocky and arrogant. Sirius sort of was a bit reckless, and even as an adult, at times in the Order of the Phoenix, I feel like he acts a bit childish. He forgets that actually he should be a caregiver to Harry rather than using Harry to fulfill this life with James that he didn't get. Don't get me wrong, I understand why he does act like that, but that's what tips me towards Lupin. Obviously it's not going to be Wormtail, sold out his friends, killed Cedric, helped Voldemort return, basically responsible for so many things in the wizarding world that went badly. So yeah, I think Lupin is my favourite of the Marauders. So thank you guys so much for your questions. I love talking about Harry Potter in depth and as though it's real life. If you want to be involved in the next Q&A, leave questions down in the comments below, or you can follow me on Instagram where I'll ask for more questions over there. We also do like quizzes and unpopular opinions, would you rathers, games like that over on Instagram. So the link is down in the description if you want to follow me there. I'm also on TikTok. The link to that will be in the description as well. Making all sorts of Harry Potter content over on those platforms too, so be sure to check them out if you want to. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Really appreciate those. Subscribe if you haven't already, turn the bell on, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.